This video is meant to help you as a lecture for Access Module 2. First, we're going to cover 4 things in this video. The first is a relationship and creating a relationship in an Access database and tables, running a query, creating a form, and creating a report. So I have a database open here called Books. It already has 3 tables, one that lists authors, one that lists books, and one that lists different publishers that we work with. Before creating a relationship, always have the tables closed, or you will walk through the entire relationship creating process and then it will not let you do it because you will get an error that says the tables should be closed. So a relationship, you put a join line in between 2 fields, one field in one table and a similar field in another table. And it will create a bond and just kind of make sure that you have the same field in one table and in another. And it's just a way to not have everything in your whole database in one table. You break it down into different subjects or categories and kind of separate. You don't want all your information about all your books and all your authors and all your publishers in one big table. We've kind of broken it down into different sections. Like this is just about my authors. This table is just about my books. This table is just about publishers. I might have a table just about my students. I could have another table just about friends. I could have another table about majors in a different type database. But you break it down. You don't put, as your database grows, you don't put everything into one table. So I just wanted to show you how to create an actual relationship. So we already have the tables established. And to create a relationship, you would have done a little bit of planning, but you have your tables, and you'll see what I mean by similar fields in a minute. Relationships are under the tab Database Tools. I'm going to go into Relationship. Because I've been into this database before, normally this show table comes up automatically, but because I was already in it, it doesn't. So I can hit Show Table. I'm going to actually create 2 relationships. Sometimes you just have 2 tables and you create 1 relationship, but I'm just going to show you 2 just because it kind of works with this database. What you'll see here in the show table, and we are in relationships, we see a relationships tab came up. We see a list of all of our tables. So to get the tables onto this back screen here, I'm just going to double click them. So I want to see the author table, the books table, and the publishers table, and then I'll just hit close. So this is just a little thumbnail. There's already a relationship here. Let me see how easy it is to delete that relationship. I just deleted the join line. So this is an author, or our author table, and it only has 3 fields in it. So we'll see our field names here. We also see the primary key identified by the key in each table. Here's the books table and all of the fields that we have already created in the books table, and then the publishers. So these are maneuverable and sizable if you needed to see more. I like to just be able to see more. So a relationship just creates a link between tables. And we're going to use what's called a join line. And we also have a one-to-one relationship or a one-to-many relationship. I like to use author ID. I'm going to create that into a link with the book ID. So I'm going to you take the same name. This is a primary key in one table, and then you put it onto the second. You literally can just click it and drag it and drop it. So I'm creating a one-to-many relationship, and I like to think of this as one author can write many books. So that kind of makes sense to me. When I drop author ID from the author table onto author ID from the books table, this Edit Relationships dialog box comes up. I should see both. This says the table name again, and the table name here is author and books, and this is the field. If you just weren't real good with your mouse or your dropping it and those were different, you can just cancel it and start over at any time. I would like to enforce referential integrity. Referential integrity is just a really big word, but it just makes sure that your data in the tables are the same. And like, I'm not going to write one author is Jane Smith, and in the other, like in the author table, and then in my books table, I write it Jamie Smith. Or so, like they have to be the same, and it's going to make sure and kind of prevent typos. And it also will prevent deletions. If I try to delete an author, maybe I'm not working with that author anymore, it will make sure, and kind of Access will clue me in by giving me some kind of error code that says, hey, you can't delete that. There's a book here that person wrote. So it just kind of establishes that and makes sure that things they're related to each other in both tables. So I will click on Enforce Referential Integrity. And then it says one to many, and I just hit Create. So it does, this is called a join line, and I have one author can create many books. The same with the publisher. We have different publishers. When you write a book, you could have different publishers. And then I'm going to take the publisher ID, and I'm just clicking, holding it down, dragging it, and dropping it onto publisher ID in the books table. So again, one publisher can publish many books. And I'm going to enforce referential integrity and then just hit create. This is the join line, and I see the one to many. You see that infinity sign, and a relationship has been created. I will just hit close. It's going to ask me if I want to save it. Of course I do. Now when I go into the tables, right before the first field, I'll see these little plus signs because I have created a relationship. If I click on the plus sign, what I'm listing here in the author table is this first author, and this is all of the books that he has or she has published with us here. Go down to Stephen King, and then here are a couple different titles that we have there. The publishers also have a relationship with the books. This is a publisher ID, the name of the publisher, and their address. Well, how many books have we published with LB? Well, there's 4 different books that we published, and it pulls that information out without even opening that other table. So that is a relationship. A query is another object in a database. So right now we just have these 3 tables. You can create a query on multiple tables. I'm just going to do one on one. Let's take a look at our books table. This has a lot of information. So we seem to have 19 different records, 19 different books. So we have the ISBN, the author ID, which is related to our author table, the title, the publisher name, the publishing date, the price of the book, and how many we have in stock. So I only have 19 here, but maybe I have 1900. Really this is just kind of a small database and a small amount of records. But if I had 1900, and I just wanted to know how many books were over $30, or how many books do we have under 100 in stock, when you ask the database any kind of question, it's called a query. And basically what it is a filter. And then we can use some wildcards, and there's just lots of different parts to creating a query. So let me just ask a question, and we'll just start one. Let's say, how many of our books cost under $20? So I'm going to create a query, and I like to use Design View. So I'm going to create my query in Design. You can use a wizard. I find when you use a wizard, you still have to go into Design View, so I just save myself the time and just do my query with Design. And again, it was under the Create tab. So I'm going to get my books. I only need one. This is just going to show the table, and I only need one. If I wanted to pull from many tables, I can do that. So I'm in Query Design, and I wanted to know how many of our books, or what books, are under $20. So I do not have to list all of my fields, but I definitely want at least the title. I'm going to need the price field, and I can just double click on these and drop them down, or I can grab it and click and drag it down and let go. Either way, it's easier to double click on it. It goes automatically. So I don't have to list all of the fields, but I can just list whatever ones I want. So I'm going to get the title, the price, and the stock amount are just some I thought might be relevant. I definitely need to have price there because I want to know what ones are under $20. So it's kind of like you're creating a little mini table. You'll see, I'll just run it for you. When I ran it, it's just a mini table. What I want to do normally with a query though is put some criteria in. So I wanted to know what books cost, how many books that we have, which ones cost under $20. So I'm going to use a comparison operator. So under price, you see the field name, the table it came from. If you want to sort alphabetically, ascending or descending by alphabetically, like by the book title or by money, you can. If you want it to show or not to show, that's what this is. Then in criteria, I'm going to do under 20, less than 20. You can use less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, any different wildcard that you want. If I wanted all the books that started with the letter B, I could do B and then an asterisk. An asterisk is a wild card that stands for anything else. So I'm just going to have some kind of criteria. In this one, I just wanted to list the books that were under 20. So this query is kind of creating a filter on the table. You can save it and it is temporary, or you can make it temporary by not saving it. And when I'm done, I just want to list these 3 fields, see what ones are under 20. I can have multiple criteria if I want. I just want to show you a nice simple one. And I hit run. And then there's my query. It comes up with the name query 1. I could save it or not save it. But you'll see here, I have 19 books in my table. And you'll see here that 11 of them cost under $20. So I just ran the query and I would name it. If you can hit save, or you can try to exit, and it's going to ask, do you want to save it? I usually just name them, what's in them, under 20. And that literally just means how much are under 20. And you'll see here the queries will be listed under the tables. You do not have to use wildcards either. Let me create another one. Maybe I just want to pull out all of the publishers that have the SS publisher ID. I'm going to just create another query. You can have as many as you want. Again, I like to do them in design view. I'm going to go to books, close that, maybe just the title, the publisher ID, maybe the price. I can have as few or as many as I want. I'm just going to make that bigger so I can see it. Well, how many are of the SS publishers? I don't need a wild card, but I'm finding something. The publisher ID is SS. And I'm going to run it, and I have 19 books, and 6 of them have been published by the publisher ID, which was SS, which I think was Simon & Schuster. If you go to your publisher table, you'll see SS is Simon & Schuster. So you can use wildcards, you don't have to, but that was running. You can do use dates. You could do before a certain date or after a certain date using the comparison operator, greater than or equal to. So that was just an example of how to run and save a query. The last 2 items in Access that we're going to cover are creation of a form and a report. And I do like to use a wizard for these. There are design views for both forms and reports, but it is a little bit more advanced at an introductory level, and it's something that we would do in weeks, maybe 14 and 15 of a 15-week course, and we're just kind of touching on Access in this. So just want to show you how to create a form, and I will use a wizard. So I'm going to create a form using a wizard. So I go to the Create tab, and you'll see here I have 5 different ways to create forms. I'm going to choose Form Wizard. A form is just another way to put data into a table. So let's say I want to add some more authors to my table. I just can pick whatever table. You pick the table that you want to create it. I'm going to pick authors table. I'm going to put, I only have 3 different fields in here. I'm going to move all of them over. If you didn't want a field in your form, maybe it was confidential information or you just didn't need it anymore, but you didn't want it erased. You just didn't want it in your form. You don't have to put it in there. All these chevrons here, I can put one at a time using this single chevron. The double chevrons are going to go back or forth. So I just did a nice clean swoop, put them all over there with that one. And I really can just hit finish, but to walk you through what a wizard is, it's kind of a little online helping tool here. I'm going to hit next. It's going to ask me first if I want a different format. I usually just use the default one, but you can change it if you want, and then hit next. It's going to ask me what title do I want. I do want the same title as my table, so I know which table it is connected to. So that is, it does come up automatically. And I'll hit finish. So this is the author's form. And if just to refresh you, this is the author table. So it only has these 3 fields. If I wanted to add more, Maybe I could do, here's all the regular ones. I could just go all the way to the end. There's already 7 in there. Here, number 17, it says your name. So let me just put my name there. Oops, says I'll put Meriday and Terry. And then I'm going to hit tab. So I did that in the form. I'm going to close it. Let me close it because it will, I guess it did show up. Sometimes you have to refresh it. Now I open the author table and look, there's my name. So I actually typed it. It's directly related to your table. And anything you do in the table, you'll be able to see in the form. Anything you do in the form does come up in the table. You can add it, you can edit it, you can delete it. They are connected to each other. Just another way to put data into the table. A nice thing about the form is one way, or mostly I usually format it so you can only see one person at a time. So if you had people coming into your company and they were typing in their own information, maybe in a doctor's office or in a cell phone place, if I were to put in my name and number and some different information about myself, nobody would see it. The person behind me wouldn't see it. It's kind of a nice little feature just to have one at a time. So form, just another way to put information into a table, and I would just create it using a wizard. The last item in Access is to create a report. A report, I'm going to use a wizard again. There is a design way, but it's very, very sophisticated and certainly something you could play with if you wanted. But why reinvent the wheel? Just if there's an easy way to do it, I certainly don't mind that. And using a wizard usually is much easier than creating something from scratch. I'm going to create a report. A report is just kind of the nice thing that you can print. Sometimes we do need this information to bring to a meeting or to put into a slideshow or something. And this information here, it's just kind of ugly raw data. You know, it's fine to look at, it's fine to answer questions, but sometimes we do just want something nice to print. I can create a report based on any table or a query. Maybe I'll base my report on my query. So you have to know what you want it to come up as, like what do you want to base it on? So I will create a report using a wizard. So again, create tab and report wizard. And what do you want to base it on? So again, the wizard is going to just walk us through step by step. I will see a list of all my tables and any query that I have. So I'm going to base it on my query. And I'm going to take, remember the query that we just created? It listed all the books that are under $20. Again, I can just hit finish and it will be done, but just to let you know, there are some changes you can make. Do you want to add any grouping levels? I do not have any grouping levels that's appropriate for this report. But if I had a list of all my books and I could group them by publisher, and then all the Simon & Schuster would be together and all the Bantam books would be together and all of the other books, like they could be grouped by publisher. If I had a list of all my friends and family, or maybe my students, I could group them by my students that attend Rockville, my students that attend Germantown, my students that, you know, have attended maybe Tacoma Park, Silver Spring. I would group them by a certain field name. So I don't have that in this case. I'm just going to hit next. Do you want to sort a certain field? It's going to give you that choice. Certainly doesn't hurt. Maybe I'll just sort by title, or you could just leave it blank. How would you like to lay it out? Well, there are some different styles. And if you have a lot of fields, I only have 3, so I think I'll be fine with portrait. But if I had many fields, maybe 5, 6, 7, or 8, you know, really it gets kind of wider. Right here in my report wizard, I can change the paper to landscape if I want. And again, I can always edit everything. And I'm just going to hit finish. So this is the report. I did not do any formatting to it, so I have a lot of white space here. I probably would normally pull the fields a little bit closer together. But what the report does is it really just gives you something nicer that you can print. There's some formatting by default that's done. The name of the report, which is the same as my query in this case, does come up kind of in this heading section that's gray. I have the name of my fields, and then I have some banded rows. So these banded rows, the gray and the white and the gray and the white. And you can create as many queries, forms, and reports as you want in any database that you create. You just need to have the table done, at least one table. You can have as many as you want, or you might not have any. You could save the query, or you don't have to save the query. The form is usually saved and used, and a report is usually saved and used or reused. If I were to go into a table and add more records to it, maybe add more clients or more books or more publishers added in this case, and then rerun the report, it will pull up anything that has been added since the last time I ran it. So this is a work in progress, your Access database. You are constantly adding